Hey, you're gonna open it this time.
What do I need to say?
You know what to do. Ready? Go!
And welcome back to the Halfie Project Podcast. This is Cedric Skycity, your co-host, and I'm joined with the lovely...
Belinda.
I'm
kidding. I'm not Belinda, guys.
Belinda Becky Buttermore
Ew.
White.
That's awful.
Okay, that was the worst intro ever. And we are talking about something very interesting today. What do we talk about? We talk about...
So here we are on the Halfie Project Podcast.
Here at this podcast... Okay, fine. We'll go. So here at the Halfie Project, we talk about the half Korean mixed culture, mixed race experience, but we also talk about all things culture, really, and we talk about different people's experiences, whether in Korea or abroad. And so this podcast is really just about...
what we just said. It's about
Yes.
all of these things.
Yeah, so that was my failed attempt at introducing this podcast.
It was good.
Thank you so much. It was actually not that good. You know, I'm like so used to introducing...
You can't pull yourself down like that.
Well, yeah,
you have to
yeah.
say, that was the best intro the podcasting world has ever heard.
I mean, maybe the second best compared to you.
Second
But yeah, I'm so used to like introducing myself in my own YouTube videos, and I have
Yeah.
my way of doing it, and it
Yeah.
just rolls off the tongue. Because I
Yeah.
know like I have like several different things that I could just pull out and say. But with
Yeah.
this one, this is like, okay, what do I need to
Why
say?
am I what is this place?
Exactly. So yeah, it was a little rough around the edges, but I think I'll get used to
That's
it.
okay. It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
4 times is a charm.
4 times? Did I do it 4 times? Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, we don't have any scripts in front of me. So,
Nope.
I mean,
this is all off the dome,
yeah.
as you like to say.
Off the dome. We are glad that you guys are here and listening.
We
and
are
we do have
glad.
a fun and interesting topic to discuss today.
We do.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if it's fun per se. Not like ha 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 fun.
No, but it's
like
fun to think about. Interesting. I guess interesting is a better word.
And very important. And actually something that I have found myself thinking about way more often than I did growing up, which is weird. Because I feel like when you're younger, this is when it's extremely vital. What is that topic which we are discussing?
We are going to be talking about representation.
Represent.
We're going to be talking about, I guess, representation when it comes to... We can talk about representation of Asians in media or in the workplace. We could talk about representation with, like, for example, blacks in Korea. I mean, there's so many different angles that we can go with this. And I think they all have their own nuances
Right.
to the conversation.
Yes. The official question is, why is representation important? And I didn't put in the word in media per se, because I don't think it should just be in media. Yes, the media is important and plays a huge role in pretty much every single person's life, whether it's what kind of media you're discussing, photos that you see on the wall or in commercials or on TV, whatever. But I still think representation is important in every aspect of life. You know, growing up, did you ever see Black Korean people in positions of power or on TV, you know, in television shows, maybe principals or professors? Did you ever see that?
No, I don't remember seeing any Black and Koreans except for maybe like Black Korean artists. It's probably the only Black Korean that I could remember being represented. And, you know, it's in media, of course, or in entertainment. But yeah, I don't remember seeing any Black and Koreans other than that.
There's football players, right? Heinz Ward?
Yeah, but I mean, I was already,
Growing
I guess,
up, I
I was already probably, I guess, an adult.
Yeah.
By that time, he was a big name.
Yeah. I'm trying to think growing up if I ever saw mixed Koreans in the media. You know, maybe I did, but I just wasn't too aware. Who would have been somebody in the media at my time? Because to be honest, I didn't really keep up with mainstream music
Right.
videos, TV. I don't know, frankly. So
I mean, I remember there was I think she's Black and Korean, a Black and Korean R&B artist. And those of you guys that are listening that were into R&B, like probably late 90s, early 2000s, you would know her name. It slips my mind, but she was also a Black and Korean R&B singer.
In Korea?
No, in the States.
Oh.
In the States, she was popular.
Man,
I gotta look that up. Let me try to find it now as we're speaking.
now that I am a little bit older, I see a lot of people in the media who are mixed Koreans. Actually, let me backtrack. You know who I see in the media who are mixed Koreans? K-pop idols or models.
Right.
And I feel like that's been the scope pretty much of everything. So it's no wonder we have this, I feel like this mindset where people are like, oh, mixed people, Eurasians are the new epitome of the beauty, standard. They are what we should aspire to in the model world. Because I see so many mixed Koreans, especially as models these days. And it's funny because I actually know a lot of them personally now that I've worked in the modeling industry.
Right.
And so I come across mixed Korean models way more often than I did. Of course, growing up, I never saw any, and I never saw it on the TV. And the very fact that we're scrounging so hard to find somebody already does a disservice to the mixed Korean kids who were growing up at our time.
Right.
To show that those faces weren't in the media.
Right. I remember as a kid, this is funny when I think about it, but as a kid, I had enough self-awareness to know that I was mixed. It wasn't like a big...
It's not like at the forefront of your mind.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't view life through that lens, but I did have an awareness that I was mixed, and I did enjoy the fact or like the fact that my mom and dad were different cultures, different races. And I remember as a kid always getting excited whenever I would see a mixed race couple or like a mixed family, either on a TV show or just anywhere. Yes, definitely in real life. I've seen mixed families in real life a little more than on the media because I lived in a military, city. So there were a lot of mixed relationships. But I remember I would just always get so excited on TV or, in a movie, I see a mixed race couple or an advertisement, which didn't happen often.
That's always what would get me to when I would see it in an ad.
Yeah,
like
I remember
commercial.
seeing like a Cheerios, I think it was a magazine ad, and this is probably 15, 20 years ago. I remember seeing a mixed race family, like a white mom and a black dad, and you could tell the kids were actually mixed.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if they were their kids, but so I used to be like, man, that's so cool. Because it's a reflection of real life. There are mixed families. And it was nice to be able to see that.
Yeah.
So I got excited.
I saw that pretty recently. Growing up, I didn't see it too often, but I saw very recently, I think it was Uniqlo, where they had very obviously, I think the mom was white, the dad was Japanese, and you saw the kids were mixed. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually reality now. And the fact that they're showing that on the media is so cool to see. But growing up, I never saw it much. Mind you, I wasn't consuming a lot either. But I felt like that wasn't so represented. And I think that's why it was such a huge deal when Crazy Rich Asians came out.
Right.
That's why it was such a big deal because, Asian writer, Asian director, you had full Asian cast. But you want to know something? Something that I still am a little bit like, I don't know how I feel about that. The main actor, Henry Golding, is that his name?
I'm
Henry
not sure.
Golding. He's British Malay. I want to double check this before I bring that up. Especially all of you Henry Golding fans. What would you call yourself? Goldingers? Goldfinches?
Goldingers.
Let me see. He was the main actor in Crazy Rich Asians. And you would say this is a step up. Asians representing on TV. This was such a big deal. But even Henry Golding is half white.
Yeah.
Right? He's not fully Asian. And so I found it kind of ironic that we were Asians on TV, awesome, 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 when the main actor himself was half. Now, I'm pulling this from the Asian representation standpoint, not the half Korean standpoint. But in that in itself is funny that we still are we're celebrating so much, these huge step forward in representation, when yet we are consistently and maybe not openly abiding by this whitewashing. Right? Would you say that?
I could see where you're coming from with that, because I don't know, it's almost like it sends a certain message. I don't want to say the wrong message, but it sends a different message.
A mixed message.
A mixed message, literally. But because a lot of Americans, and I'm coming from the American side because that's what I know. A lot of Americans would probably look at Goldinger. What?
Golding.
Yeah. And they probably just think he's Asian.
That's right.
And that's what an Asian person looks like.
Right,
so
right.
the representation of, I guess, Asians in their mind is, Golding.
Right.
Or someone like that. And there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself, but it's almost like, well, in order for a movie or an actor to get that sort of, prestige
or face,
they need to have a little bit of that, the whiteness
that's
up
right.
in there.
You got to slide into it. You can't be so weird and foreign that they'll be turned off by you.
Right. So I don't know if that was because I don't want to take it away from Golding because
that in itself was a huge step.
Of course.
Yeah.
And, he had to obviously audition for the part and he had to play the role well. But there are also many talented Asian actors, full Asian actors. And it almost sounds contradictory that we're talking.
I know,
because we're half.
mixed.
Right, because I'm, for me, okay, let's be real. I would never be able to play like a full Korean role.
No.
Just because of how I look. But I would like to say that I should, in theory, be able to play a Korean.
You think so?
In theory. I know that
theory.
in practicality,
Okay.
it won't happen because of how I look.
Oh boy, this is getting weird.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like, maybe Golding feels that same way. Like I should be able to play this part because I am Asian. I'm half Asian, but I don't have to choose a side. I don't have to play or settle for a mixed role.
But they would never also film him as a white guy. He couldn't pass.
Right.
This is where the issue is coming from because so we got to separate this mindset that we have, this face that you carry. This is what an Asian looks like. This face you have, this is what a full-blooded Korean man looks like. Right? If we look at you, let's say we're looking at Cedric and say, oh, he could pass as a full-blooded Korean. Why? Because this is what Koreans look like. But we're having this problem here because, again, we're putting this sense of like ethnicity, like your right to appear as a certain ethnicity based on how you look. But that's
Right.
separate from how you identify or feel as or grown up culturally, right?
Sure.
So we have, I think this is where the gray line is getting all mixed up because we'll look at, again, people who don't know what, say, Malaysians look like, and they look at Henry Golding and say, that's what Malaysians all look like. And so maybe he's saying yes because I'm Malaysian, but at the same time, I feel like, I don't know, it kind of does a disservice to people who are full Malay but can't get the job because they're not, quote unquote, white enough.
Right. Yeah.
It's weird coming from that angle because we're always saying like, but we are full Korean also. You know what I mean? So it's weird. I'm kind of like contradicting myself while trying to make these statements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know what he looks like, to be honest with you. So,
He is
I mean,
so
so what?
Not handsome. Not
I'm
handsome.
talking about like his like racial, like how he looks physically.
Handsome is how he looks
Oh
physically.
gosh. Anyway,
This is what he looks like. Come on, please.
let me see.
You have to look at that and say, that's handsome.
Okay, yeah, he's kind of hot. I ain't gonna lie.
You took it a step. That went from like 5 to 100 so fast.
Anyway, yes, he's a good-looking man, but I mean, see, like for someone like myself, I wouldn't even be able to tell if he can fully represent physically someone who's Malaysian.
You know, I wonder what Malaysians would think if they see him. Would they feel like, yes, he's representing us? Or would they also feel kind of like, hang on a second, but he's not Malay? You know?
Yeah.
Because admit it. Say that you and I was getting a main role in Hollywood and they said like, let's say it was me. Oh, Korean girl, Suyeon falls in love with white man and the craziness happens with the families, right? This is the plot line. I think a lot of Koreans would be on the fence about it. I feel maybe some people would feel proud. Oh, yeah, Korean being represented in Hollywood.
Right.
But I don't think, honestly, they would be happy. Like, but she's not Korean, you know?
Yeah. I think Korea is definitely one of those probably few ethnic/cultural groups that would probably be very divided over something like that. You know, unless
I did something incredible, like
yeah,
win the whole Olympics.
Exactly. And then, of course, they're going to be proud. It's kind of like the Heinz Ward thing, you know? So, I don't know. yeah, I would never be able to settle into like any of those roles because of how I look. And at the end of the day, I guess I could say I understand that.
Yeah.
And partially I'm okay with that because that's the nature of the industry. And here we are talking about like entertainment movies. We can move away from that, but it's I guess it's the reality, But
So so let's talk now more on a general term, not media and entertainment. Though I will like to make one point. I do think half Koreans should not be afraid to speak up in different aspects of society. So many times I get emails and messages from people, and it's not wrong, but saying, I want to be a model in Korea because I heard that they like half Koreans. I also had this mindset. Oh, half Korean is so exotic, but you're still Korean, so you could succeed as a model in Korea. And that just makes me feel like you are limiting yourself. There is so much more you can do. Modeling in of itself is not a bad thing, but you certainly limit yourself if you think I can go so far just on my looks alone. But that's kind of a side note. That's something I've been feeling more and more lately, having gone through that entire experience and that mindset and coming out the other side. So, okay, representation in a more generalized fashion.
Right.
What was I going to ask? Oh, okay, here we go. Why is representation important? Why do we even need to have these representations of mixed groups or different cultures or races in the public eye? Why is that even important?
Well, for one, I think it opens up the minds of, say, Koreans, for example, if there were like half Koreans or mixed Koreans sprinkled throughout different industries doing different things, and it's more of a common thing, it helps the Korea in general to get used to that idea that, oh, Korea doesn't have to look like this, I think it's super important because if you have half Koreans or mixed Koreans sprinkled throughout society, it helps the Korean mind or Koreans in general to accept that, accept that I guess the full Korean persona or look or personality or any of that isn't the only Korean, right? It helps them to get used to the fact that, you know what, Korean can look like Cedric, Korean can look like Becky. I think that's important because right now it's really hard because Korea is very homogenous even still. And it's been extremely homogenous for centuries, really. And it wasn't until recently that they really started opening up their doors in the last couple of decades. And so they're still getting used to this idea that Korea can be more than just what they've always known. So I think that's why representation is important in terms of people being in all different facets of society.
Can I add on to that really fast before we move on to the next step? Also, Korea's society, the people themselves, this next generation is going to be extremely mixed. The rise of multicultural, multi-ethnic families is huge comparatively to the past couple of years here in Korea, especially. And I'm like thinking, okay, the media has a responsibility to, not just the media, other parts of society has a responsibility to reflect the people they're serving, right? That's what essentially we're doing when you have these public roles. Now, if you have a whole mixed group of people growing up and all they see on TV is just full Koreans, and then once in a while somebody who's mixed, like Han Hyun-min, or a foreigner who speaks Korean very well, and still in the Korean media, how are they introduced? Oh, Nepalese man who speaks Korean well, right? Our French citizen who came to Korea and learned to speak Korean, and now we embrace him. They're still represented on that. Or foreigners coming to try Korean food for the first time. I feel that it's sending the wrong message, that it's still saying like, yeah, but you're not one of us. You can speak our language. You can win our citizenship. You can marry a Korean woman. You could open a business here. You could live in Korea more than any other country. But you are not Korean because you don't look like us. This is how I feel the media is still painting mixed Koreans or Korean-born, ethnically different people.
Right.
And we're coming at a heads here when the society, when the people who are actually inhabiting this nation, it's getting farther and farther and farther away.
Right.
And I think we're going to have some issues with that. The reason why is, coming back to my question, why is representation important, is because we tend to mirror the behaviors of those that we see, and especially those that we feel familiar with. That's why you need to find a good role model. This is why parents are so important, right?
Right.
Or teachers. This is why, you know, certain groups of people will listen better to somebody who is their own race talking to them. Maybe it's about the exact same issue, but someone from your own race telling you.
Right.
Then you feel like, okay, I see, you understand me. And so if you don't have this kind of role model, and I'm not saying people in the media should be your role model, but certainly there's a responsibility.
Right.
If you don't have that kind of role model, it's very easy to feel alone, or to lash out, or to be like, whatever, I'm not part of you guys anyway. I can do what I want. We saw this in the case of some mixed Koreans who were born here. There was one guy I called, I won't mention his name because he's still very active in the public eye, but he grew up, you know, having no representation in the Korean media or people around him. And everyone always was like, foreigner, 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 even though this is all he knew. And he grew up causing a lot of trouble in the society because he felt like nobody cares about me. I don't see, I'm the loner here. I can do what I want, right? Maybe that's an extreme case, but I still think that this representation reflects the kind of role models that we want people to look up to.
Right.
And you feel a familiarity with those who look like you.
Right. So it's obviously important from the angle of to have representation for people in Korea to get used to the idea and to learn a new way of thinking, just to view people through a different perspective. But also it's important for the actual mixed Koreans here to see an example of themselves, a positive example, preferably, obviously, and to know, because, you know, when they see somebody or they see someone in a role or in a position that they aspire to be in, then they know, one, it's possible, two, it can be the norm.
That's right.
Instead of just a one-off thing.
Right.
Because even still, foreigners to a certain extent are still like a novelty in many ways. Like it's a new thing.
Yeah.
Like, even though Koreans are used to seeing foreigners here in certain parts of Korea, it's still a shock when foreigners can speak a little Korean or when they understand or can relate to Koreans. And so I think we have a long way to go, but I think once there's a little bit more representation, then that sort of mindset will begin to decrease over time.
I do think so. And I think some people might take, they might be like, wait a minute, Becky, you can't have, you know, a bunch of mixed people on TV. It's not like that becomes their role model just because they're on TV or in a position of power. I will really argue that point strongly. And let's take out the race factor. Let's say a female CEO. Let's say there was a time where women were not in positions of leadership and those who had to climb and fight to get those positions. And when they did, it inspired so many young girls. Wow, she could be a president of a company. I could be a president
100%.
of a company. And I feel that's the same thing if we go to, let's say, the US, having a black astronaut for one. You know, of course, that's celebrated. Why? Because these are people that were not represented before, doing something that inspires those who look like you, who relate to you, and they feel you'll represent me, and I can do that too. And I feel that's why representation is so important. It gets a little sticky when it comes to mixed race. I do acknowledge that. I will, because we are always on one side trying to say like, I'm full this and this. And I feel like sometimes countries as a whole or society as a whole might say like, well, just pick. You know what I mean? Just pick and choose. But that's why it can be hard to wrap your mind around. But I will still say very strongly that it's important. And especially in Korea where it's very clearly defined who's Korean and who is not.
Right.
But yet now we have this new generation where it's not going to be so clear, not so set in stone.
Right.
And so the mindset needs to change. And who can help with that? People in the media, people in the public eye, having this representation.
Right, absolutely. And I would argue also people like, you know, us.
So what do you think about representation and other aspects of society and life? Because the media often gets, I think, a huge burden on that, rightly so. But we sometimes forget that it's not just watching TV or TV shows where kids are learning how to behave in society.
I think it's obviously important because, I mean, all the other aspects of society outside of media, that's more practical real life. That's the masses, right? Because there's only a small percentage of people represented in the media and also who will get into media. So I think, having representation with teachers, with doctors, with people who are in government positions, or just the mom and pop store owner, in every aspect will show not only mixed Koreans that, hey, I have a place in this society, but also Koreans who will realize, oh, this is what it means to be Korean. This is what it means to be a country, not just by how I look or strictly by my physical features. So I think it's important from that aspect to show that it's possible, that this can exist and exist well.
Yeah. We have missed that here in Korea, kind of like what we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, because before our generation, I rarely in Korea, I doubt most people had seen an older generation of mixed Koreans just working their daily life. Like a government official? No, I never saw that. Or, a doctor or anything like that. And that has to do with the history of mixed Koreans being forgotten or sent overseas to be adopted by American families. And so we lost that. We lost a whole generation of bringing up mixed Koreans here in Korea and having those kind of role models.
Right.
So when I think about that, I feel so sad because it didn't have to be that way. It didn't have to be that way.
Right.
But it did. And so that's why I feel we are we the first generation to actually stepping into this adult world here in Korea to show certain role models to the next generation of mixed Korean kids?
I know that there's a previous generation of Halfies that grew up here in the 80s and 90s.
But even at that time, it's not like they were so celebrated.
No, not at all. Not at all. I know because I'm part of a community of Black and Koreans online. And, you get to hear different stories and, relate to them, but also learn that, hey, their life and upbringing was totally different than mine. A lot of Black Koreans were born in Korea and actually grew up here for an extended period of time and then ended up moving elsewhere. And so I do know that there was a handful of, I guess, mixed Koreans that grew up in the 80s and 90s, but not nearly, I guess, at the number of today. So to your point, we might actually be, not that we grew up here, but, we might be that first, I guess, official generation of half Koreans that are integrated into Korean society and working at Korean companies and
not openly shunned.
Right.
Let's say.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think we are probably that first generation, and we say that cautiously. We don't want to neglect those that have been here.
That's right.
For decades and have made, strides into society.
Well, it's thanks to those generations and what they have done and who they have become that we are in fact able to sit here and talk about these things. The fact that we can live in Korea comfortably and happily, that's huge. 10 years ago, I think that'd be a lot harder. So in that regard, I don't take it lightly. And also, this is why the question of representation is important. How should we do it? Who are we representing for? And what parts of society should these kind of faces be represented in? That's why I take it so seriously. Because, if you think about it, that's kind of what the Halfie Project is, honestly. Trying to be that safe space and to offer this kind of representation for Halfies everywhere so that they don't feel alone. And so that they don't feel like, whoa, I didn't know other people felt this way like I did. And can realize that there are people out there who look like you, who think like you, and just that's why it's so important. So, we have this question at the beginning of the podcast, why is representation important? Frankly, this is what it's all about. This is really what it comes down to. So I wonder if one day we will be able to be a representing voice in mainstream Korean media and society.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, we're kind of a niche and an outskirt.
Yeah.
Most mixed Koreans are.
If I could just speculate for a second, I imagine a time where it will have to go that route. I just don't know when. I feel like Korea has been so innovative and has come a long way from 50 years ago, 60 years ago in society and globally. But I feel like certain things are taking its time.
It will always take time.
Yeah. So I feel like these are one of the things that seem to be taking longer than what any of us would like for it to take and what seems reasonable, honestly. But I feel like eventually it's going to get there because it's going to have to. The borders are opened way more now and the barrier to entry is a little lower for foreigners. And also for, half Koreans like us, so more people are coming here. There's more of a global awareness of Korean culture, thanks to media. And so more people are interested in coming here. More people are falling in love with Korean culture because there's so much to fall in love with. And I think it's natural that people come here, they stay here, and they adapt to the culture. I mean, there's so many expats who don't have any ethnic Korean background that are so Korean. They're so Korean, so I think only more of those are going to start popping up. And so I think the key is to get in positions of influence to be able to, I guess, to affect those changes.
I feel like there's a line here. This is maybe a controversial statement. Okay. In Korea, I think there will never be a moment where we're going to be able to look at somebody who's ethnically non-Korean and say the person is Korean. I don't know if we're ever going to reach that point. We come from this with a rather American perspective because America is a country of immigrants, flatly speaking. So when you look at somebody from America, the United States, you'll say, hey, it's American.
Right.
Regardless their skin tone or whatever. And that's just the nature of the country itself. Korea, however, does not have that kind of history. It was not literally founded on immigrants who came over from another country and started a new life. So I don't think we're ever going to reach that point. And I don't think we should, frankly. Mixed Koreans, I do believe, have a right to say, yes, I'm also Korean. I do believe that. And now as, the country becomes more heterogeneous, then that will have to happen. But I think rather than saying, even a foreign face or a non-Korean face, here in Korean say they're Korean, maybe we need more language involved. Maybe we need a new word or something, more explanation. I think rather than just trying to say, like, you're Korean, okay, just be like, we're all same countrymen. We all patriots here. I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, there is a sacredness to one's ethnicity as it is tied to their culture.
Identity.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I like that. I like the fact that I am Black and Korean. I wouldn't want you to come to me and be like, yo,
#Blasian
I want to be Black.
On my Instagram, right? People would get mad.
Yo, I get mad. You know? No, but it's there's something that just doesn't work. And I get that we're all one human race and that, if you look at the DNA, like 99.9% of everything that we are all, we all have the same DNA except for that 0.01%. I get that. But there's something to be celebrated about the differences as well. And the parts of the world that we come from and the culture and history that we have.
Yes.
And so from that angle, yeah, totally. Like, I don't personally have a problem with, claiming or people identifying with a certain ethnic group. I don't have an issue with that. What I do have an issue with is when people are discriminated against, or the half Koreans or the mixed ones. Those are like the
Because we're stepping on those toes.
Right.
It's so easy to look at somebody, say, in my eyes, you're black, so I put you in the black category. So easy for people to do that, and it's more comfortable. But with mixed people, you can't.
Right.
This is where we're having this discomfort or inability to express it.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't have an issue with, I'm, Korean, or I'm a German Korean, like a German naturalized Korean or whatever. As long as there's that mutual respect and acceptance from a nationalistic standpoint, eventually, I think I would be happy, but I would love to keep the rich cultural history. That's what makes Korea is the cultural history.
This is what we're coming to. I think is the point I want to push. We are not, we would be sorely misunderstood in thinking this would solve problems if we try to push down a certain ethnic group or push down a certain mindset about race and ethnicity, thinking we are solving this problem of discrimination. We talked about this on a previous episode. It is not about how you look. That's the issue. It's how you are viewing people. That's the issue. So regardless what you look like and where you hail from and where you call your background and my ethnicity and my identity, regardless of that, we should not have this discrimination.
Right.
The discrimination is coming from here and here, not your skin tone.
Right.
So I think that's what I hope to see in Korea. So in this regard, representation, because representation is very purely on your outward appearance and the way you behave and the way you live your life, right? We can't really delve into your head about that. Still, it is important because maybe more than just that individual being seen, it's how those around them are interacting with that individual. Maybe that's what's the most important thing. Seeing a Korean actor and a mixed Korean actor, and they're both treating each other the same.
Right.
Maybe this is what the representation should be.
Right. I've had this hidden little dream.
Okay. It came out weird, but I want to hear it.
Okay. That one, and I know this will never happen because my acting is horrible.
You know what?
But
I was just imagining if Martin Luther King Jr. came out, it was like, I have a hidden little dream.
Right. This might be like I guess a much lessened version of his dream, maybe. But
yeah, it's Martin Luther King Jr.'s junior dream.
Right. So I low key want to be like in my own drama, my own Korean drama.
Oh yeah.
But I want to play myself, or really, I guess, or for someone to play someone like me, but instead of me having grown up in the States, I grew up in Korea. And I want the drama to be centered around my family and me not being about the fact that I'm mixed Korean, but showing that I'm mixed Korean, I could be normal, like a normal Korean, going to school, studying for the college exam, having all the stresses of a normal Korean person. But I'm Black and Korean, but we don't mention too much about
That's
that.
right.
Like we talk about those issues, but that's not what the show is about.
But you don't have your teacher being like calling your name out and then be like, oh, I thought you'd have a foreigner name.
Right.
Not pointing these
No.
out.
But, because that's too easy. That's basic, right? And I think those shows, it'd be nice if those shows existed, but my show, my little secret show, my dream is to be in a drama like that or to produce a drama similar to that, because that's going to mess with so many people's heads.
Sure. And then you never bring up the race card that you're just like, well, I'm a Korean student. What? I'm a Korean man living in Korea. What? Right? Nobody ever brings, like in the drama, nobody's pointing that out to you.
Yeah.
This is what I mean by representation.
Yeah.
This is what I mean.
So
people, okay?
if anybody wants to see me in a drama or star my own drama, let us know.
Oh, okay. Is that what our listener mail is going to be about? Nothing else?
Yo, but I would totally be down to produce something like that.
And I want to play the other character. Can I? If you have a love interest in your drama, could it be me?
I guess so.
Ooh.
Oh, the white and
Or the
cream.
villain.
The villain. You'd probably enjoy playing
I
the
took
villain
your
more.
show and took it a different direction. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But whatever role you have for me, I'd love to play it.
Okay. We'll
That would
talk
be
about
great.
it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's what we're going to do after this podcast ends.
There we go.
That's all we do all day long. Well, do you have anything else you wanted to bring up about representation?
I think I've said my piece on that one, but I'm just hopeful that Korea will have more representation of not only mixed Koreans, but other, I guess, expats or other cultures. And we can all just live in mutual respect here and just, do the same things without being judged and looked at.
This is your Martin Luther King Jr.
I
dream.
guess so.
I have a hidden little dream that, Korea would have a representation and we'd live together in harmony. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, he was a little smoother with his delivery.
Resounding.
But yeah. So I mean, that's my piece.
I was here to hear it. You on your mountaintop. Thank you for sharing that. And thanks you guys for listening. Now, we have a little something here called George's Corner. And we didn't have it last episode. I did tease that we'd have it this episode. And now, here it is. So if you don't know who George is, Mr. George, he is an 84-year-old American farmer. He lives in the United States. And he was a GI here in 58 and 59. 1958, not 18. He's not that old.
Oh,
1958 and 1959. And we've been pen pals since Christmas of 2019. And he's just been sharing about his experiences when he was in Korea back then, how much he misses it, and especially the love story of a girl he had met here in Korea way back when. Her name was Marie. I mean, that was the English name. That's the only name he knew. Mm-hmm. They fell in love. He promised to marry her and bring her to the States in the 60s, but they lost touch. So this part is kind of in honor of George and him keeping this love of Korea in his heart, and also to give you guys the opportunity to talk to him. Say you were in Korea during that time, or your parents were. Maybe you have questions. Maybe you just want to tell George that you're listening and that you care about his story. We know he'd really appreciate it. So we always give you guys an opportunity here on George's Corner to send us questions that you have to George, or things you'd like to say, and we will email him. So send your questions via DM or thehalfieproject@gmail.com. So we had an email that came in from Mr. George, and actually this was really way back. But I wanted to share with you guys as the emails have progressed so you can see the way our own relationship has grown.
Awesome.
So here is George's Corner. He said, "Dear Becky, thank you for the most welcome email message." So cute. "I do also thank you for the nice words you said about my story. It would be so rewarding for me if you could use it in the future," which is what we're doing now. "The older I become, the more I seem to think about South Korea I came to know in 1958 and 1959. It saddens me as I think that this can never be again. This is more on my mind today than it was 30 years ago. Today, I think of South Korea and Hannam-dong more like home than ever before, with the love I shared with a kind and caring young Korean woman forever in my heart. Her younger brother and sister in my mind remain family that I love. While serving in Korea, I saw many mixed Korean children, half Korean, half American GI. You are truly a special person to do the much needed work that you are doing. And this is for all the Halfie Project family." He said, "I was not aware of the Halfie Project, but I did watch a podcast and a video. It's very interesting. I know how lonely it can be as we search for someone that understands, someone to talk with. I would like to write again soon. Your friend, George." So, listeners, that was for you. That was Mr. George sending his greetings. And like I said, if you have any questions, or maybe you're a relative of Marie, maybe you saw her photo on our Instagram and she looked awfully familiar, you can always get in touch. DM us or thehalfieproject@gmail.com. All right, well, we're going to end the episode here. And if you want to learn more, you want to see more stories, head on over to the YouTube channel, subscribe there. You can also subscribe to this podcast anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And we'd love to hear from you. Get in touch at thehalfieproject@gmail.com. We are The Halfie Project.